The reading is from First Corinthians, the Apostle Paul's letter to the Corinthians, First Corinthians, chapter 13, and verses 4 to 7 in the Bible, and it was read from the New Living Translation. Okay, we push on. Some of you, I'm sure, looking at having seen the theme for the month, or the topic would be, this is about selfishness. But it's more than selfishness, because there is often confusion between the terms self-interest and selfishness. And we want there should be some I in relationships. Because without an I, look at even the spelling of the word relationships. It's not going to go well, But you'll see even in the word relationship, there are two I's. And isn't it interesting that in marriage, how many I's do you find? The I's become one. Okay, that's a fun fact to think about. In relationship, we got two. And then in marriage, the two become one. Interesting. But there's often confusion between self-interest and selfishness. Some use it interchangeably, but it's not accurate, So for some people, there's nothing about themselves, which is wrong. Because self-interest is essential for our survival. That's why we protect ourselves from harm. That's why we seek to do things that will benefit us. Some self-interest is good. Self-interest is why you take yourself out of situations that are harmful, that are negative for some people, you see. So there's some self-interest is good. Self-interest is what makes you eat when you are hungry. And you don't wait. You look for food. It's self-interest. What about selfishness? So let's use the example of food. Self-interest tells you, you're hungry, get some food. So that moves you to get food. But selfishness is when you find some food and you eat all the food when there is enough for two people. I'm just sticking to two people. There's enough for two people and you eat all of it without any thought for what your partner would eat. That's selfish. And then think about it. Self-interest is important for healthy survival. I have a headache. I must take some medication. I must get rid of this headache. You must be interested in your health to do something about it. You can't say, I have a headache, but it's all right. I will go and do such and such. And you're suffering so much, you can't even do it well. Maybe for your spouse, maybe for a child even. It is what enables us to provide shelter for ourselves and our family, for that matter. What about selfishness then? Selfishness focuses on oneself to the detriment of other people. It's a very narrow form of self-interest that involves disregard for others. Remember the example about the food? You're hungry. Self-interest says, hey, find food. You find food, there's enough food for two people, maybe even three, but you eat all of it. Now that's being selfish, because now there's nothing left for anyone else. You disregard others' needs as well. Self-interest, yes, does involve considering others, which is interesting. But if self-interest is done well, ultimately, the self benefits even when others are benefiting. Like making your wife happy on her birthday, making your husband happy on his birthday. He's happy, you also feel happy. And that's what we're talking about. But selfishness can manifest in different forms. And it's important also for us to differentiate between something that happens occasionally, because we're all selfish to some extent. But when it's chronic, when one person is just chronically selfish, now that's a problem. And how does this play out? it can play out, it can show up in apathy, laziness. For example, the person not wanting to do anything or help around the house, for example, for married people. Your spouse doesn't want to do anything or to help around the house. They leave everything to you. You know, that's selfish. It's not self-centered. No. Selfishness can also show up in not caring about the emotional needs of one's partner. For example, you can only be interested in your own, your own happiness, and you don't care how your partner feels. You don't care how what you do even makes them feel. And here, you find some writers will talk about having low emotional intelligence. But I don't want us to be talking about all these long words. It simply means not caring about the emotional needs of one's partner, only focus on one's own needs. Sometimes selfishness can manifest itself in explosive behavior, such as with angry outbursts, yelling, to have one's way. You're talking about something, maybe even making a decision, and one person, before you realize one person is shouting, yelling, sometimes even stomping out of the room, all these angry outbursts, just so that they can force. This is the thing. They think they've convinced, but what they've done is actually force the partner, or what they're aiming is to force the partner to take their way. Otherwise, we will see who is who. It doesn't help. And for some people, it's not explosive, but they can be very subtle, intentionally manipulative, one author puts it. And sometimes it can be by crying or cajoling, trying to sweet talk the partner. For others, they can manipulate by wearing you down with a constant request or appeal. Oh, so won't you just do this for me? So won't you just, and at almost every opportunity they get, they bring up the issue they want you to agree with them on, and there seems to be no end. And finally, what do? Let me just agree, and everything will end. That's also unhelpful. So what do we do about we ourselves being selfish or having a selfish attitude or approach to relating to our partners or spouses? And you can even broaden it to the well-being of your partner, the well-being of your spouse. For those who are married and have children, the well-being of the family. First of all, a relationship involves two people, not one. And we're focusing on just two people for now. You can broaden these principles, to the family as a whole. If you're married, even further. And once we first have to recognize a relationship involves two people, and then relationships are more likely to be fulfilling when both partners, underline that, both partners are willing, yes, not coerced, willing to invest the time, effort, and love into it. Some people are thinking money. You can put money under effort. But time, effort, and love, we both have to invest that in the relationship. It's not one person who needs to make sure the other person is happy, and end of story. Both of us need to work at it. Otherwise, before long, it becomes a dysfunctional relationship. And then it's also important that before we can properly address selfishness, we also need to understand why it even occurs. Because there is one aspect of selfishness that we don't often think about, which involves even withdrawing from contributing to a decision, to whatever is being made. See, I give the example of those who are in they're apathetic in the relationship, lazy, won't do anything. The example I gave was around the house, for example. But consider this. Two of you are deciding on something, and one person says, go ahead, whatever you decide. Why are they not bringing their views? Why are they not expressing their desires? Why are you keeping your likes and dislikes from your partner? I can hear somebody saying, oh, I tried before. You don't know what happened. We're going to get there. Stay tuned. So what are some of the causes of selfishness? Some of it may be due to our upbringing. Maybe that's what we saw. One spouse, could be one parent, was not just self-centered, but everything was about them. Could be a father, it could be a mother. Some people also may be an only child. Or maybe you were treated like an only child. You never had to share anything with anyone, whether it was love, the love and attention you got. Maybe your siblings even got the scraps. Maybe you were a brilliant chap or girl, so the attention, you got the attention. And now you're with someone and they're asking for attention, but you've only been used to getting attention. That could be a problem because you only think about yourself. That you're the only one who needs something. No, there are two eyes in relationship. So that's one, our upbringing. And then for some of us, could be related to our upbringing or even the culture in which we live. The culture in which we live. Some cultures view men, for example, they're exempt from all kinds of chores. Some chores are actually women's work, usually around the house, anything in the home, cleaning, cooking, looking after kids, washing, everything. In the home, women's work. So they're used to that. Now you're in a relationship, even married, and your spouse is expecting, won't you help with the laundry? There's so much I'm doing. Why don't you do the laundry? Maybe you even thought about this yesterday, But it's important to understand the dynamics in which you're living. Maybe in your home or the homes you've known, yes, this is what is acceptable and works. But is it going to work for your own home? So, yes, there are male-dominated cultures. And there are cultures where roles are so sharply defined, and especially when people begin to live outside those areas of strong social and cultural influence, these things become a problem. And it's very easy to accuse one's partner of trying to be like. We've heard people say, simply because we are in love or we're married. Because we carry these experiences into marriage. And here's one other experience that can be very strong. We can become selfish or extremely self-centered because of past experience. Maybe a woman who was who sacrificed a lot in a previous relationship, and then she felt taken advantage of. It can be a man. We all then, in a new relationship, what do we seek to do to protect ourselves? This is why perhaps your partner doesn't, or your partner knows very little about you. Because maybe you said a lot in your previous relationship. Nope, I'm not saying it anymore in this one because it was used against me. And it leads us to one other key cause of selfish behaviors. We learn it. Not necessarily from childhood, but we can learn it even in adulthood. From friends, yes, the influencers, whether it's TikTok or Facebook, whatever, media. And don't think it's only social media. Well, there's the face-to-face media also, as we call it sometimes. The talking we do with people, conversations at lunch, at work. You overhear people say something, and you pick it up. Oh, so this is what, then you also begin to practice it, Sometimes we learn these behaviors from opinion leaders, Oh, this is what I did. So, if he did that, if she did that, why? He's my role model. We've heard people say. For others, they may have decided to agree with or go along with, accept the partner's suggestions or ideas, quote unquote, for the sake of peace. Because when they've expressed themselves, maybe it's led to arguments. And some of us are not equipped with the skill to be able to participate in an argument or like a healthy debate of ideas. We're more used to, he talks, it's final. If you're used to a home where the father talked and everybody saluted, in other words, everybody jumped to it without any questions, now that could be a problem. The truth is that even when we think we're keeping quiet for the sake of peace, there's really no peace. And what we have done is we've actually shut down from engaging in conversations with our partner. And yes, sometimes it's difficult conversations, but they need to be had if we're to have healthy relationships. And it's important to identify these things, to understand the origin of some of the behaviors in our spouse, because then we can deal with it. Because otherwise, we're trying to deal with something they themselves might not understand. And it helps when both people are working together rather than a fix thyself, O spouse, and everything shall be well. So what do we do? Because selfish behavior can erode trust, as described, emotional intimacy, understanding one spouse, and yes, always leads to resentment and unhappiness. What can we do? You hear therapists, psychologists, counselors who say, we must have open conversation. We must set boundaries. We must work towards having a balanced partnership, not one that only, favors one person's interest. But it's okay to say things like that, but how do we get there? So let's give you some more signs of the things we do that can breed selfishness in the relationship. One very common way is when we don't even express gratitude. Expressing gratitude for something our partner has done. We fail to acknowledge them. Some people even get irritated when the partner appreciates or expresses gratitude because they think it's unnecessary. But the absence of that could be that one is taking you for granted. And no one wants to be taken for granted. Then sometimes there are people who prioritize themselves only. No one else is a priority. What I want is important. Everything else is unimportant. Now that doesn't help either. Doesn't promote for a healthy relationship. And then there are those who deliberately avoid making time for their partner. and they easily substitute or change joint plans with ones they've made. Have you been in the situation where you plan to do something with your partner and then at the last minute something came up? And why is it that it's something you would like to do? Or is there times when there is something that is important to you, then another thing comes up? You know? How about when your partner has something to say, you're willing to listen? When you have something to say, they're busy or they don't have time, you call and, oh, this is, can we talk later, and later never comes? And how about not accepting our mistakes? For some people, admitting we're wrong can be too much. But this is not so much self-centered as we think we're always right. It's a selfish attitude, because what you're saying is that your partner doesn't have the ability to be right. This is what the Apostle Paul wrote about in his letter to the Romans. It's about pride. It's about pride. You're always right. The other person is always wrong. How is that possible? And we can highly overestimate ourselves and then underestimate our partners. Let's hear from Romans chapter 12 and verse 3.
Romans chapter 12 and verse 3. I read from the New Living Translation. Because of the privilege and authority God has given me, I give each of you this warning. Don't think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves. Measure yourselves by the faith God has given us.
Amen.
Amen.
Be honest in your evaluation of yourself. You can't be so great that your partner doesn't matter. That would be strange. If they don't matter, why are you with them? And if you have all the answers to everything in this world, then you don't need anybody else in your life. Sometimes that's where pride can take us. We don't think about it. One way it can even manifest, even though it's not always an issue of pride, is when we take all the decision by ourselves. A man can do this, a woman can do it. We sideline our partner in making plans, in making decisions. We neglect to ask if they also have some viewpoint on it. Sometimes, I forgot. How many times are you going to forget, including or involving your partner in a decision? Then how about, this was an interesting one, your partner doesn't know your interests and the things that make you happy. One writer doesn't know your passions, things you really love. And I'm not talking about love languages. Many of you have heard that, before. I'm talking, what are your interests? Do they know your interests? Your dreams. If the person doesn't know your dreams and you're with them, how can they be a part of it? How can they help you? How can they push you forward? And we can be demanding of our partner to support us. We hear that a lot from men. My wife is not supportive. Well, are you supportive of your wife? Are you encouraging her also to be the best she can be? Or you're only interested in her supporting you to be your best? And where will that leave her? And sometimes when we don't know the interests of our partner, what it means is that we are out of touch with the reality in which they are living. And how can that be a good thing? In reality, we will not know our spouse. And yet we want them to know us really well and be able to meet our needs as well. And what it also means for some people is they do very little for the spouse. When the spouse expresses something, whether it's expressing love in a particular way or doing something for them, there's always a reason why it can't be done. And that's not healthy also. For example, we've heard wives talk about the only display of affection when he the only display of affection, the only time he displays affection is when he wants to have sex. Really? That's all she's good for? And it's only that time you can be nice toward her? That's why she might be put off. And how about the ones who disregard their partner's opinions about different things? Everybody can have an opinion about something. But are we so good that we know the best about every subject? Now, that's important. I do recall being both of us actually, were in a meeting with some people, and then the man contributed. A woman contributed. Now, almost immediately, the husband turned to her and said, "What are you doing? What kind of contribution was that? You know, if you don't know what to do, don't put your mouth in this." I mean, wow, it was a real put down. And the woman didn't say a word until they left. It wasn't a counseling session, they were actually visiting. I mean, that's hard. So we need to respect the views of each other. Now let me say this before we go into what we can do. Two more points. One is a financial selfishness. Yes, we all have to watch out for it. Does your partner prioritize their own spending and financial goals over your joint goals or even the family's financial well-being? Does your partner make unilateral decisions about money without considering your inputs? Now that's a sign of selfishness. I will buy this for myself, but if it's the spouse, no, we don't have enough money. And then they go off and buy some toy for themselves, could be, name it, could be anything. New gadget, new tech tool, all kinds of things, And then there is this one we want to round up with, isolation from family and friends. A selfish partner may deliberately isolate you from friends and family because this is a way of controlling your social connections so that they can dominate their relationship. The problem it creates also is by cutting you off from family and friends, you really have no social cushion. You really have no connections you can relate to also, sometimes even to talk to. That's the selfish part. So these are signs we can all be looking. Maybe you've seen some in your relationship as we read through, some going through different writings, research and all that. We could say, well, this is something we need to work on. So we're learning together. So what can we really do? 2 words. Speak up. Speak up. Speak up. Don't keep quiet. Why do we say speak up? Speak up because you have to discuss it. And the discussion starts with bringing up the issue. Bring up, don't just talk about, such and such happened, but include your feelings about what happened. You know, many counselors will say, use I statements. Yes, there is I in relationships. I said, you know, for example, you can, instead of just complaining, you don't have time for, or you don't help me, put feeling behind it. You can say, I feel unsupported, or I'd like you to help me with the kids in the evenings after dinner. Then you can go into some specifics. Perhaps you can help put them to bed after I have bathed them. Come up with something. You're going to go out. When you're going to go out, who gets the kids ready if you have children? Get your partner involved if you're married. It's really important to do this. Be specific in your needs when you discuss. Because if you are not specific, the selfish partner will not be able to guess what they are. So speak up and be specific in your speaking up. And then, in terms of positive reinforcement, it also helps. When they do the right thing, acknowledge it. Let them know. Let them know, wow, this is it. When you do this, I really appreciate it. Let them know what it really means to you. Because if they do what you've requested they do, and you don't acknowledge it, well, aren't you taking them for granted? Didn't we say it's beyond self-interest now? Maybe you're being selfish, And it's really important. We read Romans 12:3, which said we must have an honest evaluation of ourselves. Some of us become dependent on our spouses to make us feel happy, to let this happen, let that happen. We need to focus on ourselves also. Remember, we said some self-centeredness or self-interest is important. We need to be the best of ourselves, you see. And, one author, Kundam says, we can reduce the impact of our spouse's selfishness by investing in yourself, independent of them. Is there something you can do for yourself? You love reading, buy yourself some books and read. You don't always have to sit and watch television with your spouse. Say, let them know, I would like to read a couple of nights a week. That's what you would like to do. Yeah. Do something for yourself because a better you will make a better relationship. Some of us are, and if you're not married, don't look to marriage to make you what you are not. Because it's all the way back in the Garden of Eden. The woman God made walked with God into the man. She had something she was bringing, her walk with God. What are you also bringing as yourself, as how God has made you unique? What are you bringing into the relationship? Don't be focused on, my partner completes me. What are you doing in their lives? Or when I'm with her, I just feel so this way. What are you investing in their lives? And so when we're speaking, this is what Dr. John Gottman, the relationship expert, calls intimate conversations. And he says, put your feelings into words. Ask open-ended questions and express empathy. What does he mean by, asking, put your feelings into words? We've said, given an example, but asking open-ended questions, Ask, what would you like for dinner? What would you like for lunch? And the person, whatever you give me. No. So for people like that, give them options. I have this and this. What would you like? Have them make the decision. You do not have to be making the decision all the time. We've worked with several people over the years. It's interesting. The one who starts out, being happy about making the decisions, it gets to a time it actually gets tiresome, and they realize, why am I the one deciding where we should go and eat? Why am I the one who's deciding what school the children should go to? Why am I deciding when to go to the store? This is no longer a partnership. This is like one person having to do all the work. So it is important by keeping your questions open-ended. Open-ended means you are not asking a yes or no question. Do you want to eat? Is yes or no. But if you ask, what would you like to eat? You're giving them an opportunity. That's open-ended. They can say so. And then it's also important that if you feel you are not being involved in decision-making, for example, that's what you express. Don't simply say, you are not including me in decision-making. They already know they're not doing it. So you're stating the obvious, but what is it? What does it mean to you? How does it make you feel? Remember the question we asked earlier? How do you feel in the relationship? Do you feel like you don't matter? Then say it so. So it looks like I'm not in this relationship. I just feel like this relationship is about you alone. Say it. Don't expect that they will know what you mean. And if you find, for example, that your spouse struggles at speaking up, maybe you need to help them by encouraging them to speak up. Maybe they've grown up being used to one spouse making all the decisions. And so you're not married yet, but that's the same thing they're doing. And you need to say, wait a minute. You haven't said what you would prefer. What would you like? Maybe some of you are planning your wedding, and that's the first time you realize, oh, he's got ideas. She's got ideas. Maybe until now, you've been having your way. And suddenly, he's also speaking up. Isn't that what we said? Yep. That's how you break selfishness. Speak up. Let the person know. And how are you taking it? Are you taking it that they're being difficult? No. So pay attention to the needs of your partner as well. Don't simply agree with them. Some people go along because they don't want to engage. Because sometimes they don't want to take responsibility. Because it's easy to have somebody else do it. And so keep away from accusing each other. And rather than yelling at them or saying, talk, or something like that, just encourage them rather to speak. And then it's important to agree, either you agree as a couple, or at least one of you, or you, let's focus on the individual, you need to let your partner know what you will and will not accept. I will not accept your speaking to me in insulting behavior. Yes, I can understand if, once or twice you took a decision without letting me know, but you need to involve me before taking decisions. And you need to decide, psychologists and counselors, therapists will say, this is setting boundaries. What can we do on our own? Where do you want to be consulted, or when it is important? And then we talked about encouraging. Encourage empathy. Simply encourage the person to understand you better. There's a passage in the Bible about understanding wives. It's about understanding wives. So I will just read that. If I found one understanding husbands, yes, I would share that. But this is helpful, and particularly for men, because it's very easy for us to expect our wives to understand us, but we often do not make the effort to understand them. So 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 7. Let's hear what it says.
1 Peter chapter 3 verse 7. In the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. She may be weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered.
Amen. There are all kinds of elements in this, but you see the phrase, treat your wife with understanding. Get to know her. Get to know why she says things the way she does, rather than simply say nope to them, or even worse, ignore them. The gentleman, here's the kicker. The last part of this verse is, treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered. That's a scary thought, right? If you don't treat your wife well, guess what? God may not be answering your prayers. Actually, will not. That's the phrase there, will not. So, understanding is helpful. Let's aim to understand each other better. And it is also important, helpful, I should say, to explain the benefits of doing something different, doing things a different way. Explain to them. They might not get it the first time, but when you encourage the doing aspect, let's do it and see how it is. And then you review. And as we said earlier, acknowledge the successes. In doing so, a small change can make both of you happy and strengthen your bond. And that can motivate both of you to work on what might be the bigger issues. But then I want to finish with self-care. Giving yourself the attention you need. It can be health. It can be physical. It can be emotional. It can even be spiritual. And sometimes we may be so focused on our partner that we forget about ourselves. A common phenomenon is people who nurse, people who might be chronically ill. They put themselves so much into it, they don't realize that they're getting weaker themselves. And hasn't it often happened that the one who's looking after the very sick person rather passes away because they neglected to take care of themselves? And so one writer says, it is important that we sometimes divert the excess love and attention that we give to a selfish partner towards ourselves. We need to take time for ourselves too. I need a break. I need a holiday. I'm the only one who does all the work in this house. I need a break, and I'm going to take one. Because if you ignore your needs and continue investing all your attention and energy into someone who only thinks about themselves, well, it will only continue to hurt you, drain you emotionally, and guess what? It's actually going to undermine the relationship, the very relationship you think you're doing your best to keep. So, show yourself some love. Give yourself some spare time. Get a hobby. Give more attention to your own needs. And there are times, I guess, for many of us, we need to learn how to say no. We need to learn how to say, I disagree. We need to speak up. So let's take care of ourselves, and we'll be a better person in taking care of our partners and our spouses. And yes, instead of being selfish, we can become self-centered, become better people, and then enable our partners to enjoy a better person. Remember, there are two I's in the word relationship. In marriage, there's one I. And that I includes both. Thank you, and over now to Dr. Jacobs Abbey for our questions and contributions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uncle Richard. What a powerful presentation. I have learned a lot from all that you just shared. And so, folks, again, welcome to the month of March marriage seminar. And today, the topic we are looking at is I, me, and I in the relationship. And what Mr. Crab was doing is to try to encourage us to show affection to each other and not be too self-centered. So as we have done in the past, if you're on the line and you want to ask a question, you are please welcome to unmute yourself, and you can ask the question directly, and Mr. and Mrs. Crab will respond as well. Just in case you also want to just contribute to the discussion, you're also welcome to contribute to the discussion, and it doesn't have to be a question. Again, if you're on YouTube, you can put your questions on YouTube and we will answer that directly. But those of you who want to send us a text message or a WhatsApp message, you can do so with the country code +1, area code 571, and 339185. And we'll be more than willing to read your questions on your behalf. So, Mr. and Mrs. Club, the first question we have for tonight is coming from Nigeria. And the question says that, thank you so much for sharing these powerful nuggets with us. The truth is that no one intentionally begins to use the I statement or me alone statement in any serious relationships. But I will not deny the fact that it happens. Does it mean that when we become comfortable with each other in relationship, we are no longer intentional? Thank you.
Well, you partly answered the question you asked, that when we are becoming comfortable, we sometimes relax. We are not working hard to maybe to the interest of the other. You feel that, well, things are going the way they're going, so you are just enjoying, not thinking of the other person. That's what really happens sometimes. We no longer want to, go the extra mile to do anything because we feel that everything is there. Sometimes we take each other for granted. For example, you think, oh, your wife is always there. She's not going to go anywhere. So all that she's saying, you don't mind. You think your husband is always there, what else will he do? So you don't make the effort to do anything extra. That's what happens. Thank you.
All right. Scrap, were you trying to add something to it?
No, I said good point.
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much. So since we are already in West Africa, let's remain there. So now let's go to Sierra Leone. And it says that Thank you very much for the questions and the contributions. My question is, how can individuals find a healthy balance between self-fulfillment and building meaningful connection in relationships?
Think of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think of yourself alone. Yes, self-fulfillment. How about your partner also? First Peter chapter 3 verse 7 says you deal with them with understanding. And the end of it is that so that your prayers will not be hindered. When you are thinking of yourself alone, you are not thinking of the other person. You begin to do things that may be hurting the other person, but they may not even say anything. And that's how people say you are too full of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You see? And when we look at Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4 says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourself. Don't look only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
So don't look only for your own interest. Take interest in others too. So take interest in your wife. Take interest in your husband. It's not only who everybody wants comfort, but we must both have comfort. So if it's comfortable for me and it's not comfortable for my husband, that is not right. If it's comfortable for my husband, it's not comfortable for me. It's not right. That is why we need to talk. And when one person is saying it, don't shut the person down. It's not true. What you are saying is not true. Think about it. Think about what the person is saying. That is how we work together. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's see. Let's go to Ghana. We are still in West Africa. And it says that, well, it's been a little difficult staying because the line keep going off and on. I'm sure you are aware we have a problem with internet technology. But the few I heard, let me ask this question. How does societal pressure and external expectations influences our understanding of the I in relationships?
Thank you. One of the points we made had to do with, cultural, you can say cultural compliance. We came to meet it, so we are also continuing. You see, it could be this. We hear statements like, "Where I grew up, that's how it is." Well, what about her? What about What about your partner? What if they grew up in a different place? Why should they adopt yours? And if you are the man, maybe in your culture, what the man says or wants or does rules. And what about her? Maybe she also grew up in a different one. So that all these influence us, which is why we need to talk about them. Remember, we mentioned Dr. John Gottman talking about intimate conversations, talking about and expressing your feelings, about the issues, not simply, I don't like what you're doing or what you're doing is not right, but actually expressing your feelings. Let the person know this is how it makes me feel, because otherwise they're doing what they think is right, So that is really important, putting your feelings into words. And if you like, putting your observations also into words, because if somebody is really used to doing something as a cultural practice, or they're used to thinking it's right, they will simply continue to do it. And then the same has to go for expectations. And that's why we give the example that people living in their own countries or cultures, it may be okay, but some of these things change. And we need to be ready to be able to turn the issue, and more importantly, as a couple, how do you want this thing to be? And it's a you plural, not you individual. This is where there is one I, but the I involves both of us. Because you're saying I, I'm also saying I. And it's important. You've heard people say, oh, when you marry, the I becomes we. But in reality, when we say I, yeah, when my wife asks me a question, what would you like to eat? My answer is not, we would like to eat. My answer is, I would like to eat. But the real thing is, in the end, we eat. So the expectations are there, but do we also share the expectations? Let's also learn to share these expectations, because we may have expectations we're not talking about. And what we do is we judge each other by saying, it's wrong, what you're doing is wrong. Or sometimes you shouldn't do it that way. Or you shouldn't think that way. What do you mean I shouldn't think? Now you're telling me how I should think? This is what I know. This is how I think, or what I think. So we need to recognize that each one of us can be completely independent and whole as an individual. There's this erroneous impression, oh, when you marry, then you're whole. This person will complete you. These expressions about my better half. I'm a whole person married to a whole person. I'm not half. It's not half of me. No. It's the two of us that make the whole. But it's one whole plus one whole. It's not my better half is my wife. So what am I? Some of these expressions have influence over us in the expectations we have. So if my wife is my better half, then I'm expecting her to be the better part of the relationship. What about me? I need to be better for her also. But am I? So let's not only carry these expectations in our minds, let us express them. And yes, the culture is not only the ones in which we've grown. Where we are now can also be highly influential, because when you're living in a culture or a society or community even, there is a strong pressure, societal pressure, yes, like, has been said, there's the pressure to conform. But it's up to us, the couple, to decide how we want to live. Ultimately, the relationship is the two, not the extended family, not the culture, not the country, not the race. It's us, you and your partner, you and your spouse.
Well, thank you very much, Uncle Richard, for hitting it right on the head. I couldn't agree more. All right, so again, for those on the line, if you want to ask a question, as I said earlier on, you are welcome to unmute yourself and ask the question directly. If not, you are welcome to send a text message and we will ask the question on your behalf. And if case you are on YouTube, you can also put your question there and it will be asked on your behalf. So let's come to the United States. There's a question here. And the question is, what are some warning signs that indicate an unhealthy level of self-centeredness in a relationship? How can it be addressed without provoking each other?
When anything that happens in your relationship, if you are not happy about anything, speak up. but expect your partner also to explain themselves, to also speak up. If you are the only one who keeps saying, you are not listening to me, what is your partner not listening to?
Mm.
And if you keep hearing your partner saying that you are not listening to me, pause. Let your partner explain to you why they say you are not listening, so that you will hear what they are saying. The problem is that we feel that our partner is saying something that is not right. So that is why you are not listening, because you think you are doing everything right or you are not doing anything wrong. So that is the problem. So the warning signs is if you keep hearing your partner say the same thing over and over, pause and think there must be something wrong. Or if you think you have discussed a particular topic or you've discussed something and it keeps coming up, then it means it has not been resolved. So even if you have talked about it, sometimes you feel this was last year. If it is still, your partner is still raising it, it means the problem has not been solved. So that is when you have to listen, okay, what is it? And if you are not getting any headway, then you need help. You need to seek help so that somebody else will listen and help you. Thank you.
And when we say help, seek professional help. I mean, you can talk to a third party, but usually what we found when couples, even couples call us, and the question they ask, one of them are, okay, and Chris, is it wrong? And that's, you're trying to trap me, or you're trying to prove a point. So those of you who've tried that, you know that we've never answered yes or no. Because we want to get to the real issue. Why are you asking? Is it wrong? Because maybe in this circumstance it's wrong, or maybe it's not. But you need to understand what is really behind. So don't simply, and you realize why we're saying ask open-ended questions. Why do you do this? Or why do you think it should be this way? And as we said earlier, some people they need to, let me cast it positive. They need to develop skills in being able to have a discussion and not dictating. Learn how to discuss rather than dictate. In a discussion, everyone has a voice. Everyone. So if there's two of you, each of you has a voice. No one is silenced. And there's nothing like, whatever you say. No. You have to speak up. Let me know what's on your mind. Let me know what you think. That's how we move forward together. Relationship is not about one person. It's about two. And that's what we should work on rather than, and in seeking help. The problem is some people they talk to someone who tells them, A is right, B is wrong. And that's it. So you won. And then A won. B still feels very strongly about what the issue is. And that's why we discourage simply talking with people who will point out or who will tell you, you are wrong, you are right. Because it tends to short circuit the real issues, because it may be a particular action that is being judged or determined. Is it right for a wife to do it? Is it right for my husband to ask? Is it right for my partner? Or, can you believe what my partner did? And I'm telling him, I'm telling her, and they're not accepting what I'm saying. And so you might talk to someone who might say, no, you are right, or you are wrong. But what led to that statement is often not discussed. And so it's like treating the symptoms without finding out the real cause, without getting to the real cause. When somebody presents to the doctor with a headache, the doctor can prescribe headache medicine. That doesn't mean whatever is causing the headache is gone. The headache will be gone, but it's only a matter of time before it returns, just like Vivian was saying earlier. If your partner keeps bringing up the same issue, it means the real thing is not being dealt with, and you need to dig deeper. And so you need to seek professional help. Talk with a counselor, not an advisor. That's very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uncle Richard. Thank you, Auntie Vivian. Another question coming from Pennsylvania, and it says that what strategies can couples employ to overcome the fear of vulnerability and open up to deeper connection with others?
Your question is with others, or are we talking about your partner, your spouse, or just with others?
So let's start. Well, yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one. Let's assume it's his partners because he said couples. So,
okay. So, if you are in a relationship, you must work towards being transparent with each other, to feel free to talk about everything. If there is any fear that if I say something, it will be used against me, you are never going to be free to talk. And if you have done anything to make your partner feel that way, you are never going to actually know the real person that you are with. So sometimes you can see that friends or relations talk about the person and you think that I don't know the person I'm living with, because you are not allowing yourself to know the person. We must both work at feeling free with each other. Say it like it is. How you feel, what you think, how you want things to be. Talk with each other and allow your partner to talk and listen. That is the only way the person will feel free. If you feel that you've been listened to and you've been understood, you will want to say more. If you feel you haven't been listened to, you haven't been understood, you will not say more. So the same way you feel, the same way your partner also feels. If your partner doesn't feel that they've been understood or they've been listened to and been understood, they're not going to talk. And you are never going to know each other. But the aim is for the two of you to know each other so well. That is how you will live. You will have a happy life because you understand each other. That is the way it is. So you must feel free, allow your partner also to feel free and express themselves. Don't shut each other down. Listen carefully to what the person is saying and think about it. And then you can work with each other.
Awesome.
Right.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Auntie Vivian, for that contribution. So another question, and this is coming from Virginia, and it says here, I think you've answered this already, but let's see. So what are some practical ways to cultivate a healthy sense of self, while also fostering strong bond with your partner? So the question is, what are some practical ways to cultivate a healthy sense of self while also fostering a strong bond with a partner?
Okay. First of all, think about yourself. Who do you want to be? You see, you have goals in life, or you should have goals in life. That's one. So it's important. Think about it. What am I looking for? What do I want to become? What do I want to? And then the question is, how do I get there? And then you want to enlist your spouse's help. Yes. Then you bring that in. Well, how can I get her? How can I get him to help me do this? But even before you get to how can I get him or her to, is what can I do to be who I want to be? Maybe you need to take a class. You need to go back to school. How are you going to do it? Some go, oh, yeah, I have a baby. Okay, work it out. That's why we plan, and that's why we plan together, or you have young children. Oh, they need my attention. Okay, so what are you going to do? How are you going to go to school then? You can't say, oh, because of that, I'm not going to. No, what will you do? And that's why we talk about the two I's. It's not only you, but your partner, your spouse. How can they be part of this equation? So it's not about you alone. How can they also be part of it? And then we work together as a team, rather than, well, this is what I decided to do, therefore, then you don't want them involved. And again, that's not being in a healthy relation. But we have said there are times when I need to go back to school. Therefore, these are the things I think we should be doing. Then you have what Dr. John Gottman calls the intimate conversation. How can we do this? I really feel like I need to get back to school, But then it's not about you alone, and this is not about guilting one's partner not to do better, but rather enabling the process of doing better without harming the relationship, without, making us suffer, so to speak, in the relationship. It's important that we do or have these discussions so that we can make the progress we need to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uncle Richard. So let's see. There is more questions coming in, and this is also coming from the U.S., specifically from the New York area. And it says that how can individuals strike a balance between asserting their own needs and being considerate of their partner's desires in a relationship?
Back to what I said.
Yeah.
Yes, by all means, let it out. Your own desires and everything, talk about it, but listen to your partner too.
Mm.
When you shut your partner out, or you think that only you must be heard, sometimes you don't even know you are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But when your partner draws your attention to it, that everything you are doing, you're only thinking of yourself.
Mm.
Instead of getting angry or getting upset and say that, how can you say that? Ask your partner, why do you say that?
Mm-hmm.
So the important thing is to listen to each other. By all means, don't keep things inside. Say it. How you feel, what you want done, what you think about it, say it. But expect your partner also to say something, not just to agree to everything you say. Because, hey, your partner also has brains. They also have feelings. They can also bring up something, even based on what you are saying. they can also give you a good contribution. So take out selfishness. Don't think about yourself alone. That is what will solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Club. So there's a follow-up question, and this is coming from Sierra Leone, but I think it's a follow-up from what has been said or answered before. And the follow-up question is, it is true one ought to be very transparent and open to share everything. But there is also a saying in Africa that it is not everything that needs to be shared. Some things are just important to be kept secret. Otherwise, it also has the potential of ruining all that you have worked for. It is not as if you are hiding something, but the truth of the matter is that you know your spouse better than any other person. You know their level of emotional tolerance, and you know what will wreck them. Isn't it better if you can keep some things that can destroy the relationship? Thank you.
I don't know what you mean by keeping things that can destroy the relationship. You see, sometimes you are thinking that, oh, there are things that are better to be kept and not to be said. Because you are thinking if your partner knows about this, it might ruin the relationship. Maybe she will leave me or he will leave me. It is better if you talk about it with your husband, your wife, your partner. Sometimes you'll be surprised the way you discuss it. But if you don't say it and they hear it somewhere else, that is what brings the problem. It is not that you did this or that. It is where they heard it from. Especially when they know you are keeping it from them. That is what hurts. That is what brings the problem. And when people keep saying, sometimes they say that there are things that you don't talk about it, like when you are in a relationship, you don't talk about it until you are married. The real reason is that if you talk about it in the relationship, your boyfriend or girlfriend or your partner might leave you. But when you are married and now you talk about it, there's nothing they can do. There is still something they can do. You begin to build suspicion in the person's mind. You don't help them to trust you. But if you are very plain, if you say the things, you will see that the trust will grow. The things you are keeping from each other are the things that each other is suspecting each other of. When you are hiding something, you are also thinking in your mind that maybe your partner is also doing the same thing. Basic thing about phones. Anybody who has things to hide wants to see the other's phone. And anybody who has suspicions about anything, it means that you are doing something. What are you doing? Maybe you are not, let's say that you are suspecting that your partner is being unfaithful. Maybe you are not being unfaithful. What are you doing so that you won't be unfaithful? You are not talking to your partner. You don't make them happy in the house, but you don't want them to talk to anybody else. So what do you want them to do?
Isn't that selfishness?
Yes. So if you are, why are they talking to other people? And why do you want to know everything on their phone, even you don't want to bring yours? Why are you... Let's be very plain with each other. This matter of it's not everything you talk about. Your partner, your wife, your husband should be your confidant, should be somebody you can trust. And you must also prove yourself to be trustworthy, so that if your wife or your husband tells you anything, it's because they are trusting you. That is why they're telling you. So it builds up gradually. They tell you something, the way you react to it will help them to tell you more. And then you don't use it against them. If anything, if it's something that we need to work on so that it doesn't happen again or to improve ourselves, then we are working together. What can we do so that we will improve on this? So please, that thing of it's not everything that you have to say. It doesn't happen in our house here. We talk about everything. And even if maybe you forgot about something, when they ask you, oh, I didn't tell you this, you talk about it and feel free. You will be free. You won't be hiding. If you try to hide it every time, you have to catch yourself and begin to find something to say, to hide something. You are troubling yourself. So take it out. If you want a true relationship, a very healthy relationship, then don't keep things from each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Auntie Vivian. I think your response has generated a side conversation. And so somebody said here that, didn't we say that we learn from experience and experience is the best teacher? If you were in a previous relationship and you had opened up to the best of your ability and that cost you the relationship, wouldn't you learn from the past? Why would you want to be that candid as you were in the past? Except you already have a death wish. Thank you.
So it's true. If you have had a bad experience in a previous relationship, yes, that will make you not want to say a lot of things. But you see, sometimes you are treating your new partner as if they were the other one. You see, you are punishing your present partner for what your previous partner has done.
For the sins of somebody else.
Yes. And it is not fair. That was him or that was her. This is a different person. Something you can say that, you know what, this is what happened in my previous relationship and I don't like it. Mind you, sometimes when you actually talk about what happened in your previous relationship, your partner might help you to realize you were the one who were wrong. Or, you didn't do this thing right. And so they can help you. But if you will deal with it that way because of how I was hurt, I don't want to be hurt anymore, but do you want the relationship? If you want a relationship, then make it clean. This is a new person. This is not the one you were with. So do not punish your present wife or husband for what your ex has done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Uncle Richard, you were saying, so everybody know you were coming to say something. So somebody said I should wait. You want to say something?
The wheels are turning in my brain. And what I want to add is, we talk about this experience as the teacher. So in this case, the person said, oh, I opened up, I was candid, and it cost me my relationship. Do we actually think through why did it cost me my relationship? That person with whom I shared began to look down on me. It disrespected me because of that, and hey, do you want somebody who will accept you, who will only have the funny version of you? The truth is that we can only hide the real person. Also, it will. Vivian was saying, going to keep quiet. don't care. You will care. So that your mind the
Uncle Richard, your line is breaking a bit, so if you want to reposition properly.
I'm sorry. Let me. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yes. As I was saying, I said it's important to think through what led to the breakup. Was it just what you said? Or was it maybe the interpretation or how your partner took it, or how they understood it, or how they began to treat you or consider you or view you based on what you had said? You see, there are things about us you might not want people to know, but do you want the person you get married to know the whole you, or only the sanitized version? And I was saying we can only hide our true person for so long. Some people don't care, so they say, well, if he or she finds out after marriage, okay, I'll already be married. But think of what that will do to the basis of the relationship. He lied to me. She lied to me. You've heard it so often. I didn't know this. And the question will be, what else is he keeping from? What else is she keeping from me? And that's where you have grounds being made fertile for suspicion and all manner of things that don't help the two people to others. That's what, I wanted to add that. We need, if you shared something and it's led to a breakup, you need to find out, why did this lead to a breakup? Is it because for the person it's a deal breaker, or what was it? Did it lead to disrespect? We need to look at all these things rather than simply say, because I said this, that therefore in my next relationship I won't do this. Sometimes it's not what we said. Sometimes it's an action. Sometimes it's allowing the person a certain amount of trust, and then it's betrayed, and there's, okay, my next relationship, I'm not going to do that. And we need to be aware that every relationship can be unique, yes, and true. There are lessons that we can learn from previous relationships. And sometimes, let me add, not even from previous relationships, from the current relationship. Things may happen which may cause us to behave differently. I've already talked about people shutting down and not contributing to making decisions because they'll say, whatever I say, my spouse won't take. So you go ahead and decide. Whatever I decide, I'll go with it. And yet they're really not happy with it, And that's what we need to be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uncle Richard and Auntie Vivian, for adding on. So another question here, and this question is also coming from the US, from Virginia, and it says, what are the potential consequences of neglecting one's own needs in favor of prioritizing the I in relationships?
One very critical consequence is a loss of self-esteem. You get to the point where you think you don't matter. And part of our self-esteem is what makes us attractive. And the sad fact is that you find people sacrificing their interests, the need to improve themselves and all that. And what happens? the partner thinks, this is not the person I married. You become boring. You are like this, you are like that. And then they begin to pick fault with the person. So it's important for us. We're contributing something about ourselves to the relationship, you know. And so ask questions of your partner. Why do why do you want to get married to me? For those of you who are not yet married. Those of us who are married, we need to ask ourselves occasionally, why did you marry me? So, but you know, why are you asking me? Let me hear it again. And you may find sometimes that, okay, maybe they married you for reason B or reason C. Is that reason? Still think that way? See, that's yes or no question. So instead of asking, do you still think that way, you ask, what do you think about me today? Let them talk. Because you need to know. So our self-esteem is critical in the relationship. Our honesty is important. If we've already gone over. You don't have to say, if you lie, if you're not shaving, okay, you mean it's not an outright lie. But a falsehood is a type of lie. So a lie is a lie in different shades. We need to be careful. I'm going to play smart by not saying this or that. Well, it might turn out to be a very foolish decision you're taking. If you're poor at handling money, for example, why don't you come clean with your partner before you get married? If they're better at handling money, maybe they're saying, oh, you're the man, you should be, I would like you to be handling the finances. And you're terrible. So why don't you let them know, no, I'm not very good at that. It is something I would rather you did. Or maybe have a discussion about who's better at handling it. And then in that process, you can say, you know what? I think you'll do better handling the money than me. Or maybe you're a man and your mom handled all the money, so you think that's the right thing. But the lady you have is terrible at handling money. And you might be making them take on a role that will not be beneficial. So it's important to bring up these things. We have to be a better us or individual, a better I, so that the relationship will be a better relationship. Let's not assume that agreeing makes for a better relationship. Often it creates a false relationship, really, or a shaky one. At best, on the outside it will look great, but it will have a very weak foundation. Because anything built on falsehood is shaky. It's only a matter of time before it's exposed. When it's exposed, it can't stand. It will crumble. Okay.
Thank you very much, Uncle Richard. Thank you for that comment. And there's a question that is here. It's more of a, I don't know if it's a comment or argumentative language, but let me read the way it's been put. So he said, well, growing up back home in Ghana, I see my parents, for instance, there is a seat that no one sits in it except my daddy. There is a glass that no one drank from it except for daddy. Now, in a way, it probably may be perceived as showing respect to the head of the home. But isn't it the same thing that leads to they becoming overly controlling and then begin to use the word I, this is my cup, that is my chair, nobody should sit in it. So that's why I don't know whether it's a comment or because it didn't come in a question form, but if you want, or you and Mrs. Crab want to jump right into it.
Okay, so there are traditions in our homes we've been through some traditions in our homes, that is, homes of our parents or wherever we lived, who the marriage that really affected us. So maybe we thought they were wonderful traditions. We want to do that in our home. It's up to you to discuss with us. But if there's a problem with it, they might ask questions. So if they ask questions, you should be prepared to answer the questions. Sometimes they might draw your attention to it that, it doesn't really matter what, for example, this special glass for daddy and special seat for daddy. Well, maybe your wife thinks it's not at all. If you want to, you can do it, and it's not my problem. But if your wife asks questions like why should it be so? You should be able to explain to her. And if she thinks that, I don't think that there should be any hard and fast rule about it that nobody sits in this chair. If a visitor comes and before we come, the visitor has sat down and sat in that chair, are we going to tell the visitor to get up and leave the place or what? Daddy's chair, get up. No. So we have to think through these things. We don't know the reasons why you have that. It's possible that maybe in your home there was only one glass and daddy has to drink from that glass. All of us drink from a cup. So this is that daddy's glass or that kind of thing. It could also be that daddy had a favorite mug or something that he drinks from. So, okay, if you also want a favorite mug, you have to tell your wife that, well, me too, this is I want it to be mine. But that means that you also get something similar for other people. So it doesn't become a thing like you are very special and, others are something else. That's not the way that you are treated as very special. If you are doing all that you have to do, you would get the treatment as special. If you are being the leader that you should be, it is not in the things that you are given that shows that you are the leader. Like the special seat or the special glass, that's not what shows that you are the leader. And even if they give that to you, they can be giving that to you and still not respect you. So that's not what brings the respect. It's up to you to discuss with especially your spouse about any traditions you have from your home or wherever you're coming from and you want it done in your house. You have to discuss it, talk about it. And you should both be comfortable with it and then it can be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Auntie Vivian, for adding your voice to the conversation. So let's see what's here. Again, if you are on the conference line and you want to ask a question, you are welcome to ask the question directly. Unmute yourself and you can ask the question. Again, if you want to send a text message or a WhatsApp message, you are welcome to do so by starting with the country code +1 571 337 9185, and then you can also ask your question if you are on YouTube and you want to ask a question there. So let's check what some few comments on the YouTube. And this one say, I totally agree with what Mrs. Kraft said earlier. Why treat the new person differently? She or he didn't do anything. So don't punish someone for what somebody else did. I think this was in reference to the earlier question as to whether or not your experience should prevent you from sharing in your current relationship. So thank you for the comment on that. So there's another one too that says that so every time there is a special occasion, I always end up to give my spouse a gift. I have to remind her to give me a gift. And it has been so as long as I remember. If I don't remind her, it doesn't happen. Do you think it is deliberate, or should I just accept it that that is how she is? Thank you.
Um, Maybe it's not deliberate. Maybe she doesn't know how to give gifts. There are different people in this world. We work with so many people. For some people, it is not that they don't give gifts, but they are just not used to it. In one case, actually digging into the whole issue, she has been given gifts all her life. She has never she's a last born, and everybody just gives her things. And there has never been a time she has even thought of giving anybody anything, and nobody ever expected anything from her. That was the problem. So she had to learn that you get, but you also have to give, so that you can let your wife know that yes, the way I give you gifts, I expect you to give me too. Maybe your love language is receiving gifts. So you are, talking in your love language, you're giving her gifts. But the real thing is you also expect a gift. So let her know that you expect the gift. Don't give up and say that that is how she is and stop at that. You will not be happy. You are not happy. So let her know that yes, even talk about it. Is that the gifts, like, do you like them? But I don't get anything from you too. I would like to get from you, and have the talk so that she knows that you are also expecting the gift, so that she doesn't, if every time you have to remind her before she gets you a gift, you have to let her know it's not nice. If I have to remind you before you give me the gift, I don't feel happy. So try, you can try. Talk about it and encourage her to try small, so that it can be done. But don't accept it that that's how she is and stuff like that. No, because you are not happy. So let her know. I hope I have answered the question.
And you won't be helping her if you don't bring it up. This is why speaking up is really important.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. So we have two more questions and then we will wrap it up here. So the first of the two says that thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Clark, for sharing this important conversation on the subject. My question is now when relationships become familiar, we sometimes end up not paying attention to certain things. But my question to you is sometimes we've heard men or women, well, in most cases it's a movie. I hope in real life it is not so, but I'm asking because I've seen that in of our African movies. And it says that sometimes you see men prioritize the need of their spouses other than themselves. You hear words like, I am willing to do anything and everything for him. Or in times when there is crisis or quarrel in the relationship, you hear things like, look, if you know what I have done for this woman or this guy, and he treated me this way, I will pay him back what he has done to me. Of course, this is someone speaking out of anger. But the question that I believe this person is writing is trying to find out from you, why is it okay for people to prioritize the need of their spouses over themselves? Thank you.
The question is prioritizing the needs of your partner If it is over your needs, that is neglecting your needs, that doesn't work well. So as you do for your partner, you're thinking about yourself also. So yes, think about the other person, but don't forget about you. You also matter. So am I comfortable with what I'm doing for my spouse, or what my spouse wants me to do or expects me or has told me that's what they want done? I must be comfortable about it. And much as I want to make my spouse happy, I must also be happy. So if I can't do it, if it's not comfortable for me, then we'll talk about it. If you prioritize your partner's needs over yourself, sometimes you're not going to be happy. You feel neglected. Sometimes you feel like you don't matter in the relationship and everybody matters. So as for those things that I've done for this guy, sometimes when you go into it, they really haven't done that much what they're talking about, or sometimes thinking they've done something extraordinary. If you listen to the whole thing, it was nothing extraordinary. In their eyes, that's what they think. So it depends on what the person is saying. And, those movies that, I'll do anything for my wife, I'll do anything for my husband. Sometimes people say things like that, they don't. It's a saying. Same way, I'll do anything for my children, and you are thinking only of yourself all the time, but you are saying it with your mouth. So it depends on the person and what they're saying, what's actually being done. You have to weigh both of them together. I hope I've answered your question.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And the last question that I have here also talks about, it says, can self-centeredness ever be beneficial in a relationship? If so, in what context or to what extent?
I think we've given examples of improving yourself, taking some time. Let's say you decide, for those who are education-minded, you decide you want to take a second degree, so you go back to school. Having a second degree might open up new job opportunities for you, hence be financial beneficial to the family, The process leading up to the second degree might be a tough one. It may call for sacrifices by your spouse, maybe to sacrifice their own enjoyment, so to enable you to pay attention to schoolwork, etc. But the end result, or the goal, is that both the family, or both of us for that matter, will benefit from what I'm doing. It's not that I just want to do something for myself and that's it. So yes, there are instances where whatever we do self-centered can help. And that's what we're talking about. We take time to take care of ourselves so we can become a better I in the relationship. Sometimes it might even be, why don't you talk to a counselor and find out how you can improve yourself in this or that area? Once you've done that, yes, you would become a better person. And then, therefore, your relationship will become a better relationship. That's what we're talking about. It's important for us to do this for ourselves. And then the rest of the family or your partner will benefit from the better you. Think of it that way. I'm helping my spouse to be a better him or her, and as a result, we will be better off. That's another way of looking at it, rather than he's going to school or she's going to, what's going to happen to me? And no, you know that it's only for a period. And that's why we need to talk about these things and make sure we're both on the same page. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share these things. That tells us we all need to work. And every one of us has work to do in this regard. Whether you're thinking about the I, whether you're thinking of the me or myself, your goal should be that the I, a better I, can lead to a better we. And we will have a better relationship, a better marriage as a result. Thank you so much. And thank you again, Dr. Jacob Sabi and your team, for hosting us once more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uncle Richard, and thank you everyone for coming. It's a pleasure, and happy Easter to all of you. We will join again next month, as we continue to improve relationships. God bless all of you, and have a blessed evening wherever you are. Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
This session is no longer being recorded. Goodbye.